Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com, and I'm going to do another random artist feature today. I've been kind of cramming or trying to take their music in. The British band Oceansize. Let's see. Let's start the timer. Hopefully this won't last too long. But they have in their history 4 full-length albums and an EP and a bunch of singles and a live box set type thing with the DVD. I first heard about them it was really late 2005, sometime in 2005. I remember Mike Portnoy mentioning them on his quote-unquote Heroes of the Day and comparing them to, I want to say Radiohead and Incubus and a couple other bands. Although I'm not a Radiohead fan, there's a lot of bands I like that are similar to Radiohead or influenced by Radiohead, so that certainly caught my attention. And then I found one of their CDs, one of the promo CD at Cheapo, late in 2005, I remember, along with Casfly's album, same time. What am I buying your attention? We're buying a unicorn. So I bought it just for like $2. So, and I'll show that in just a minute. But so that's kind of when I started. I didn't go way back, and they actually played in Minnesota in 2004 at the 7th Street Entry with a band called, what's the band they toured with? I'm forgetting now. The band that they toured with actually is still around somehow, but they played at the Entry, and I didn't know about it, of course, but I found out later. So, but I guess I can do is just, okay, so they started out late 90s, 97, 98, I don't know, they formed, let's see here, they formed in 98, in Manchester. Okay, so, and they released a bunch of CD singles, I guess, because looking at their history, before they put out any album, and a couple EPs. Amputee was one EP, A Very Still Movement was another one in 2001. Amputee was 2000. Very Still Movement 2001, and Relapse 2002, and One Day, All This Could Be Yours, that was 2003. Then they had a bunch of singles, in 99 they put out Saturday Morning Breakfast Show, and then, okay, I'm not sure this is completely accurate, but so they released a bunch of EPs and singles before they put out their first full-length record. But then I think it was 2003, I believe it was 2003, they put out Fluoresce. As you can see, I have the promo here, and then just the standard, which I didn't get this thing. It says release date May 18, 2004, but I believe, yeah, this is a 2003, at least maybe in England. Maybe you got some U.S. distribution with promos and stuff like that by 2004. The comparisons, like Mogwai, Tool, Nirvana, Jane's Addiction, My Bloody Valentine, Can, and Faith No More, among others. This has led to them being championed by Enemy as spearheading the so-called new prog rock revolution alongside Canyon and Dead Meadow, who neither of those bands I'm familiar with anyway. But, so yeah, this record, this debut album, Fluoresce, interesting name for an album. And some people really love it. I think it's a really good record. It's not my favorite. It's not a record I've listened to the most among their catalog, but it has a lot of really cool moments. I call it Pink Floyd moments almost. The guitar textures, very spacey, almost ambient guitar textures. And of course the description of quote-unquote post-rock in 2002, 2003. That was when post-rock, the so-called post-rock, was starting to get popular for the most part, with Sigur Rós and with Explosions in the Sky and Godspeed You Black Emperor, and of course Mogwai, who's from across the pond. They probably looked up to, because I know they've mentioned Mogwai, or the main frontman Mike Van Aert. But as far as this album goes, for us, I mean, my favorites, probably the songs that have the guitar textures that's featured the most. One day, This Could All Be Yours, I would include in that list. Let's see here. Women Who Love Men Who Love Drugs, I think it is. Amputee's a favorite of mine. That song just kind of gradually builds and climaxes, and it's just terrific. Saturday Morning Breakfast Show and Long Forgotten, the last two. And the last 3 songs are all between 8 and 10 minutes. Massive Bereavement. Catalyst was a single, of course. Eye in the Morning's an instrumental. It's nice, but I really like this record. I wouldn't put it as my favorite, but I definitely would like to find it on vinyl. I think it was available at one point on vinyl. But if they don't reissue it at some point because Oceansize aren't around anymore, I may have to just continue to look and hunt it down. So that was 2003. The very next year, they put out an EP which is called Music for Nurses, which has become, some people say this is their favorite, actually. And, well, it's not my favorite. It is definitely, I can understand why someone might consider it their favorite, because it's like whatever it is, 5 songs, and there's not a song that I ever skip. Paper Champion probably be my favorite. That one has multi-parts and that kind of stuff, and is a little more song-driven, I guess you could say, as opposed to some of the post-rock stuff and sort of left turns they were taking. But yeah, I mean, Drag the Null, Dead Dogs and All Sorts, One Out of None, that's a kind of a heavy riffy song. I remember when I first got into Oceansize, though, I wasn't sure if I was going to totally dig them, because part of it was the vocal style. Mike Vennard did some screaming, and part of it was just there's sort of dynamic shifts and style combinations. It was odd because I'd have like melodic, almost pretty vocal harmonies, and then really thick, dense guitar riffs. So they were combining sort of almost, I wouldn't even call it Queen, almost like Beach Boys like harmonies with. It's not exactly metal, although at the time I called it psych metal, but something like Incubus, what do you call it? New metal or modern hard rock? I don't know. Or alternative rock, heavy alternative rock, because people don't call them metal, but yeah, Music for Nurses, certainly, which, of course, the next record, Everyone Into Position, they had a song by the same name, sort of like a Led Zeppelin thing, or how many other times is that? There was another case of a band doing that where they put out a song of a previous album name, or vice versa. But yeah, and I'd say that this, and I have it on vinyl, this is my favorite Oceansize record, although splitting hairs, but this is the first album that actually obviously came out when I became a fan. And if I had to choose, I would probably say it has my favorite Oceansize song, even in the last song, The Ornament, The Last Wrongs. But yeah, no, I got this. I know I imported it because they haven't reissued it since. I don't remember. It wasn't overly outrageously expensive, but I think I paid, since it's a double vinyl for Everyone's Position. It wasn't exactly cheap, but I guess why is this my favorite album, though? I mean, if I'm choosing, again, you're splitting hairs here. I think part of it's the energy on it. Part of it is the sort of the nostalgia, I suppose, in a way. But as you can see, like I said, here's that promo that I got. This is the first one. As you can see, it was $2 back in 2006. And then I eventually picked up just a standard copy. I don't know, the CD looks pretty much the same. The orange, I always think of this album for being like an orange Crush. Oops, there goes my jewel case. Orange Crush, orange, whatever. Is this the Nectarine album or the Peach album? But yeah, I mean, the Charm Offenses, the first track is terrific. The energy on that, the build, the energy is just amazing. And it gets so heavy. I mean, it's not metal, I guess, but it's hard to really say because it doesn't have the traditional sound of metal, but the guitar riffs are so heavy at times that how can it not be described as metal? I don't know. Heaven Alive, Meredith, there's some more melodic ballads in here. Music for a Nurse is a ballad. A lot of people love that track. No Tomorrow. I mean, they use some electronic textures in here. I don't know, it's just the rhythms, even though someone said that this is their most poppy record, which I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if I agreed with that, but it certainly has some songs that were sort of maybe an attempt at radio. What was the one? Yeah, Homage to Esteem. I think that's the one. But anyway, I'll move on here. Of course, then that was in 2005 or 2006 is when I heard it. 2007's Frames was the next album. Of course, this was finally issued on vinyl by Superball Music, or it was Superball Music label. I don't know if it was I think it was Inside Out. Back a couple years ago, 2013 maybe, 2014. And Frames, I would put just a hair behind, but at times I almost prefer it to Everyone to Position. It's so good. Oh yeah, this is the red vinyl. I forgot about this. Vinyl community. This record, I guess, yeah, I suppose conceptually, if any of their records are concept albums, this is maybe the strongest concept album they've ever done. But the other thing about this record, at least one thing about it, is it's sort of a concept album I've always thought to be about the movie Friday the 13th, the very first one, not the whole Friday the 13th series. But there's even a song, well, there's a song on here called An Old Friend of the Christies, if I'm not mistaken. It's either on here or it was a bonus track. Of course, you can't even really read a lot of this, as you can see in the gatefold. The titles, the font they used for the actual writing of the names was not the most legible thing, but if I'm thinking of maybe it's a bonus track, An Old Friend of the Christies. But no, that's one of the. I'm thinking of actually Voorhees, actually, which of course Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th. But yeah, that's An Old Friend of the Christies, likely as a reference to, because they mentioned Old Friend of the Christies in Friday the 13th, the first one. I don't know if they do it again later in the series, but I don't know if the guys in Oceansize and Vennard himself were big fans of Friday the 13th, but at least this was an influence. The first movie specifically. But yeah, I mean, my favorite tracks or songs on this record, I can read it. It's just so hard to, like... the opening track, commemorative 9/11 t-shirt, or just its underscore t-shirt on the CD, that's a terrific song. That thing, and then it goes into Unfamiliar. That's like an instrumental that just builds, and the riff, it's catchy as hell. And it has just sort of like those goosebump moments where it comes up and comes down. Oceansize are like kings of dynamics, of soft and loud, pretty and dark. But then Trail of Fire and Savant, one of those songs, I think it's Savant, features just a wonderful string arrangement. Only Twin, and then Sleeping Dogs and Dead Lions. That song, I always think of it's just this heavy power chord riff, and I always imagine the scene, one of the scenes in one of the first two Friday the 13th, I think it's the cop that's running through the woods, and he's running away from Jason, I believe. It's although I've come to recognize they use a similar sounding riff in some of their other songs on other albums, and then of course the closing epic, The Frame, which is like post rock, as good of a post rock composition as I've ever heard, or I've ever it's gorgeous. The outro especially, this is the guitar textures and the way that the beauty of the outro, or the last 7 or 8 minutes, it's hard to avoid tears. Actually, it's so majestic and so like celebratory. It does sound like the end of a movie or something like that, like a climax to a movie. Which, to choose that between that and The Ornament, The Ornament, of course, I always think of like a 70s band. It sounds like 70s classic prog kind of thing, or psych rock. But so, alright, so since then, that was in 2007. Then they released the box set, the live Feed to Feed box set, which they did 3 nights. They did all their albums up to that point, and then some songs off the EP. I mean, maybe actually cumulatively the whole Music for Nurses EP. And I never actually purchased it because it was like 100 and I don't remember. It was over $80. It was a lot of money, but I wish I had. And I know you can still find them. I probably will get it someday. But they put out this EP, the Home and Minor EP in 2009, which it's all ambient songs for the most part, other than I think it's the Legal Teens, the first track, which I haven't really listened to this that much. I would put this probably as my least favorite Oceansize release, but it's still not bad. It's certainly it's just more chill. It's almost soundtracky, like Monodrone, Home and Minor, the title track, The Strand, Getting Where Water Cannot. Anyway, so then, I don't know if I would rank that below this or not. It's kind of a push. But then they put out their last record, Self Preserve While the Bodies Float Up, which I guess overall I was maybe slightly disappointed in this record after loving so many of their other records, but I don't hate this record by any stretch. It has a lot of good music on it. Silent Transparent is gorgeous. The sort of vocal hook and string arrangement in that, and then Oscar Acceptance Speech. Those are the biggest two highlights to me. Superimposer and Build Us a Rocket then have nice riffs on them. But the ballads are sort of, they sometimes just don't do a lot for me. I did actually, I was such a, I pre-ordered it and stuff like that, and I got the signatures. So, but yeah, that's kind of my story and a little bit of history on Oceansize. I mean, I go on more about Self-Preserved. An odd cover, of course, with the artwork of a woman's upper body, and they have more of that inside, of course. But of course, Mike Vennart's gone on to do solo Vennart, and he's also done. Now he's got British Theatre, which has their debut album Mastery coming out in April, and their drummer Mark Heron is tremendous. Although I've read some stuff about what he was doing recently, he's playing with some other groups, but the drumming on Oceansize's music is some of the best drumming we've heard in the last 15-20 years. And Gambler, of course, is also in British Theatre, and he played on Vennart's record, and so did DeRose. But it's too bad they're not around, but I kind of understand it for logistic reasons. And, like this last record, Self-Preserved, was kind of more individual. It wasn't as collaborative, and they weren't really as tight-knit as a band, I guess. But that still hurts the fact that and the drummer, I guess their drummer had a lot to do with it. I'm not going to say all the different reasons, it's only been what I've read online, but if they could find another drummer, it would be wonderful for them to do a reunion, or maybe, they could come back and have mend whatever relationship that isn't there, what it used to be, and maybe just do some reunion shows and maybe put out one more record someday. But in the meantime, we have Vennart's career, which is, it's going well. I'm really happy to see it, and Oceansize, one of the best bands of the last 15 years. And if you've never heard them, definitely, they live up to their name being, they have a song called Size of an Ocean, if I'm not mistaken, which kind of fits. Also, of course, the Jane's Addiction song, Oceansize. But if you like progressive rock, modern progressive rock, textured, you don't like your prog, real technical, but more atmospheric and really satisfying from sort of a methodical and mood sense. Oceansize are as good of a band that's come out in the last 15 or 20 years, and I'm just glad that I have their music still to listen to. Thanks a lot.